Good day, everybody, and welcome to the House of Mario, the South Australian Nintendo podcast that is backed by a 120 Power Star rating. I'm your host, Drew Agnew, and this week we are doing a special Spoilercast all about Trigger Witch. And this week we also have Jono Pech. He's back to talk all about the story he crafted in the game. Jono, it's good to have you again.
Thank you. Wearing the exact same clothes as last week, aren't we?
Yeah, no, we're dirty people. We don't do any laundry.
That's it.
No,
It's good to be back.
we're recording this straight after the sort of more general outlook on Trigger Witch. So if you haven't listened to that one, definitely go and check that one out. A lot of information about the game, especially if you don't know about it. Why did you click on a spoiler cast about the game? That's ridiculous.
Maybe they found this on the internet somehow, searching in an engine. And now we can tell you, if you want to hear about how the game was made, you can go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah. And if you did find this through the algorithm, thank you very much. Welcome to the House of Mario. It's a great place to be. Mario, he's a grumpy bastard, but in the games, he's friendly. So that's all you need to know. Right. He's not so nice behind the scenes, I'll tell you that right now. So, Jono, Trigger Witch.
Yeah.
Fantastic game. We talked about it last time. I'm in love with it. I love the gameplay. Love the story. So let's talk about all the spoilers in it, because there's plenty of twists and turns throughout the game. Plenty of characters to talk about. So to start things off, let's talk about...
And I wrote it, so I know all the twists and turns.
You
and
do.
All the Easter eggs and secrets that you don't know.
Yeah, imagine if there's someone out there who knows more about it than you. They've just played it so much. You're like, I don't remember that. I don't remember writing that.
Maybe one day, but at this point, I have to say, I know that story and script better than almost anything.
Just spell checking, rereading it all the time, all the rewrites and stuff. Oh,
not sick of it yet. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a testament to it.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. Let's start with talking about some of the main characters in the game. So the protagonist of the game, Colette, your witch friend who you play as, you go through the game. So how would you describe this character, the main character you play as? How did you find sort of writing the character? Did you want it to be a playful character, or did you just sort of end up that way?
Yeah, I wanted Colette to be a bit cocky and a bit brash, because she's very skilled, like as the player character. I guess I can't remember if you said this, but we're going to go full spoilers here, aren't we? Yeah. So she's like the only one that can save the world in this case, Evertonia. So because of that being like the character player, I thought we have to make her like really good with a gun, with a firearm, and the top of her class kind of thing, because that will kind of explain why only she can save the day, and she's not going to call in the rest of the clip, who mysteriously you don't actually see any of the rest of the clip in the game. it's just Colette, but we won't worry about that. And yeah, so I really did want to make her a bit cockier than she is, but the Rainbow boys who created the character and the game, I think wisely steered me towards making her more likable and a bit more vanilla, which is a pretty standard thing for the main character of a game to be a bit of a Mary Sue, so to speak, where there's not really any like deep flaws and anything that makes them unlikable, because you have to, if you don't like the character, you're not gonna really want to play as them or relate to them. So that was, I guess, their thinking with that. And I think I was coming at it more from too much of like a writing perspective, where I was like, no, she has to be flawed, she has to be like a bit more deep and that kind of thing. But this is a simple game. It's it's not The Last of Us. We don't really need to have anyone in deep remorse as they're playing through this thing. So yeah, especially like the relationship she has with her friends. I wanted her and Remy to have this real rivalry back and forth where, Remy's jealous of Colette, and Colette kind of knows it and like kind of twists the knife a little bit to stir her up. And you can kind of do that to an extent depending on like which dialogue options you pick. But we came to a result that wasn't too snarky and wasn't too like, I feel a bit rude after saying that. It's a good balance, I think. Did you tend to go with the nice remarks or a bit more brazen?
Oh, when it came to Remy, I was always just like in her face. I was just giving her shit the whole time because she gives it to me. I'm going to give it straight back. And I did like that you could like choose your dialogue options. Like it was nothing that was going to like completely change the story. It wasn't like a Telltale game. Make your own choices. No. But I do appreciate the option of being able to put your own sort of emotions into it, especially in that particular part of the game where you do have a bit of a clash with Remy, and she is actually the boss battle for that dungeon. And I thought that was awesome when that happened. When she you started like firing at her, and then she went to a second stage where she's using a fire magic as like a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. I thought that was awesome, and that was like a really awesome story moment, I feel like. And
yeah, I'm really proud of that too. And that's really important for her development as a character. Like that's her rock bottom as you defeat her, and she becomes like humbled enough that she can have a change of heart, I guess, and come through in the end for you. And that was the challenge with that, was creating a character that wasn't so mean to you that you didn't understand how they were friends. So you got this small village, and everyone's like growing up around each other. And I think we did a good job of making it clear that they used to be really close when they were little, and as they got older, they got a bit more competitive. And Remy got a bit jealous of Colette's It's kind of like that Frank Grimes Simpsons thing where I wanted it to be a bit more like that, where like no matter what he does, Homer always comes out on top, even when he's like not trying. So Colette like sleeps in and she falls asleep in class, and somehow she's still like on the top of the class and always kicks everyone's butt when it comes to the firearms. And I think I wanted to make that like way more of a thing where she's just like, oh, I'm just really naturally good with firearms, and Remy's like the hard worker who like puts in 100%, and she still just can't quite meet Colette's skill, and that just drives her nuts. But the challenge with that, as I was starting to say before, was having it so that when Remy turns on you, it's a kind of a gradual thing. It's not like, oh, where did that come from? Like, I thought we were friends. But at the same time, you're working together through that dungeon to the point where she just gets more and more ticked off, and at the end, she just like loses it. Basically, she has like a mental breakdown.
And when we were sort of messaging each other whilst playing the game, we actually talked about this moment before. You mentioned that there was like a couple of rewrites and stuff for this section, how you're experimenting with different ideas or different turnouts of events. What were some of those?
I'm trying to remember. So the ending was definitely, we'll get to the ending a bit later, but there was definitely like an alternate ending that we went back and changed. What were we talking about? You might have to remind me with that.
I thought it was the Remy bit, but maybe it was the end of the game we were talking about. I thought we were talking about the Remy sort of boss fight and how that turned out. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the end of the game. To be honest. Must have been. Yeah.
I can't remember. But yeah, there were definitely bits and pieces that were tweaked. Like the spell, like there was these items that were added to the game to be kind of like MacGuffins. So like the when you go to the mine, they give you this herb that helps you breathe underground, and when you're fighting with Remy, she's using this Pyra shard to create fire magic, and she uses that to melt down the wall. And then it kind of like comes together at the end of the game where, spoilers, you go into space. And this is one of the things where, as the writer, I had to kind of try and make the ideas from the other devs make sense. Because in my head, I'm trying to make everything in this game reasonable and logical. It is a fantasy game with magic, but on top of that, like we can't just go into space because you die if you once you hit space, you can't breathe. So I kind of reverse engineered this thing where you get this item at the start of the game that helps you breathe. So you got that in space, and then you got the rock that keeps you hot so that you don't freeze to death in space. So it was kind of like a full circle thing that was reverse engineered to explain how it's possible. Not that every single person would be like, "What's going on here? You can't breathe in space." But for me, I wanted it to make sense.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really smart. Like when that bit of dialogue comes up saying that, she can breathe because of this and she can survive the cold because of this. I'm like, yeah, right, yeah, because I did pick up those items. And there is a fair bit of thought that goes into that because you've got to think about it. It's not just this dungeon, it's cold. You get some heat and you'll be fine. You can't breathe here. We'll think of something to make you breathe. So it was actually like used in 2 different places, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it worked out. I'm really happy with how that worked out. And that's one of the cool examples of being able to add something to the game as, a narrative designer that makes sense in the world beyond just adding to the lore or whatever.
What about the character Shelley? So your friendly friend.
Your nice friend. We got the I think they were written down originally as like mean friend and nice friend or something like that. Yeah, Shelley's a nice, like she's just that nice friend that everyone has when they're kids. That's like sweet as a button, cute as a button. She's a bit smaller than everyone. She doesn't have like the physical abilities. And when I'm trying to remember which came first, but the storyline for her, because I wanted all these side characters to have their own story. And so the story with Remy was that she wanted to explore magic as this thing that had been lost in the world, because that was if she couldn't make it as a member of the clip, then maybe she could make it as a witch who knows the old magic. And so for Shelley, her story was going to be that she doesn't quite fit in. There's something about her that she feels a bit out in the world. She's not as quick as everyone. She's not as tall as her friends. And when we had this boss fight in the goblin castle, I thought it would be cool to have a ghost. And I created this story where that's her learning that it's her ancestor and that she's half goblin. And then we like reverse engineered this thing into the prophecy that a half goblin would be the one to bring back like peace between the 2 realms. Mm-hmm. So her being that character that doesn't quite fit in, but she's really kind and she's always there to encourage her friends and try and like be the peacemaker between Remy and Colette. I think that it's important in character design to have characters that stand out from each. And it's pretty Colette's there in the middle.
Yeah, because she was always the nice one. Like, she comes and talks to me, and like when that moment happened where you find out that of her, her background and that, I thought that was really cool, especially when you sort of notice like, oh, she actually has like goblin traits, and I never really like looked at it that closely before that, especially since you don't know what a goblin looks like in this game necessarily.
Yeah,
as well.
And they all look a little bit different too, as well. Yeah, that was interesting because I'd like write the character like a year ago, and then like a few months ago, I might see what the portrait or the sprite looks like, and I'm like, oh, they went with that kind of goblin, or they gave Shelley like these pointy ears. And like I know there was different points where Jared was like, oh, does she look too much like a goblin? Is it going to be too obvious and stuff like that? But I think that, like you said, like it's not the kind of thing where you see her and you instantly think like, oh, she's a goblin. Like it's just she looks a little bit different from everyone. And then it was the same with like the making that link between these letters that you're reading in the castle and her. I was like, what can we do that kind of like links them? And it's like I came up with the idea of this necklace that's handed down from the Goblin King, and then she's got this necklace that's the same. And I think the art came back that instead of the necklace, it was going to be like this hairpin that you could actually see in the portrait. And yeah, that was another little thing similar to the herb that lets you breathe underground or whatever, where it was like we were able to reverse engineer it into making sense.
Yeah, for me, when I noticed when the dialogue was talking, oh, okay, so that's her background, and what I noticed was like that slight tinge of green to her skin. Like, oh, okay, and it's like, Jared, he had nothing to worry about. I didn't notice, but I am a little bit slow, so there is that. Maybe I'm not the best test for it, but we'll see what other people say.
That's okay though, because I think if people figure it out, they'll just feel really smart.
yeah, because there's been a few games and a few stories where some people have been like, oh, look, saw this coming from a mile away. I'm like, I didn't.
Yeah, I still haven't figured it out. What?
Yeah, I still don't know what's going on. Yeah, well, I guess I enjoy those types of stories more. I get more of a reward because I get to find out when I'm meant to. So, suck shit, smart people.
But yeah, that was really like inspired by. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII, as I mentioned on the other podcast, and I really loved how each of the side characters that come into that game, into your party, have their own backstory that you get to learn about, and they have their own emotional moments in the game. And they're like, I won't spoil Final Fantasy VII because I know there's people playing remake for the first time, but there's the Cosmo Canyon part of the game with Red 13 and his discovery about his father in that storyline being slightly different to what he thought was the kind of thing that I was going for with Shelley. Was like, okay, we know that her mum works at the gun foundry and got her this sweet gig as a janitor when she failed the graduation. But there has to be something more to it. And I thought it would be cool to make it so that, that part of the game is actually really important in explaining the difference between the goblins and the witches and the reality and the truth about the goblins, that they aren't the bad guys. Because at the start of the game, we kind of wanted people to think the goblins were the baddies and then you'd go up there and start fighting them. I don't know if you had that kind of vibe before you got there, but there was this whole thing where we wanted like the main villain, the Man in Black, to be this mysterious character, and maybe he's a goblin and maybe we have to go fight the goblins. So when you get there and realize like, oh, the goblins were just kind of insecure and cautious, and they didn't understand how to use the guns, and the witches put up this magic wall that cut them off, and it became this kind of tragic love story between the prince and Shelley's great grandmother or whatever. I think that was really important to kind of drilling home the goblins side of that story, as well as the scene where you first meet the king up in there. So I'm wondering, like, did you head into the northern area thinking the goblins could be an enemy?
No, I didn't really. I didn't, because like the Man in Black, I looked at him, like the little bit of his face you could see that he was just like a human, maybe another sort of a wizard or something. So I might, no, I don't think the goblins are bad. And yeah, so I didn't go in there thinking, all right, these goblins are just going to get shot in the face. So I thought there was going to be a bit more to that story. Because like, when they're talking at the start, all the characters together, they are saying about like what the goblins are and that, and I was like, there is more to this story, I think, because it has been shut off for so long. I think there's some lost context here, which will be described later on in the story, which it was. And
yeah, cool.
Especially when you first go there as well, they're very friendly. Like, all right, these people are fine. It's not the NPCs in the town. Like, all right, because none of them are like, oh,
yeah.
Like,
what are you doing here?
yeah. It was actually kind of funny because like none of them were like that shocked you were there. Like, oh, here you go. Yeah.
It's a balance, isn't it? They do throw you in prison, so they're not super welcoming. But yeah, it's funny that it's just like the king and the sheriff, and everyone else is pretty chill about it.
Yeah. And the bit you mentioned
but
before.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just the bit you mentioned before with Shelley, like being the janitor. That is one of the bits that made me laugh. Like you defeat the first boss, which is the dragon, and there's blood everywhere, and they just call Shelley in to like mop it up. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna need a bigger bucket." That was one of the moments where like, just made me chuckle.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. That's good.
Yeah. Sorry, what did I cut off there, Jono?
No, I was just gonna say like I'm really happy with how it came out with the goblin, like that story where, you read the Great Trigger book in the chamber, that the church at the start of the game, if you choose to read it, to learn about the history, and it explains like how the portal came about and the guns, and then the witches wanted to learn about the guns, and they ended up building that wall to cut off the goblins as they were starting to get a bit feisty or whatever. So you only really get their side of the story, and without it becoming some huge like allegory or metaphor, I compared that to the way that like we all grew up with like maybe not us as much as like previous generations. Like you hear your side of history, and then as you get older and you hear other perspectives, whether it's about like indigenous populations or like the way that America stole land from the Indians, the Native Americans or whatever, it became more of that thing where like, oh wait, there's another side to this story, and it's so much more complicated, where you're talking to the king and he's like, you guys put up this magic wall without any like discussion, so why should we welcome you into our land to help you like find your mother after hundreds of years? Like, get out of here. So I'm really happy with how that turned out, because it kind of like flips Colette in her like righteous quest. It's suddenly she's like, maybe the witches aren't this wholesome group of people.
Yeah, and there's my point of view was as well that there's obviously something very strange with just the lack of magic. There's some history of it's been lost, and a lot of these witches, they don't know why exactly they're using these firearms. Where do these firearms come from? There's a lot of questions set up at the start, which when I was looking at the trailers and that, I'm just like, oh cool, you're a witch with a gun, you get to shoot stuff. But once I started playing the game, I was like, wow, there's a lot of lore to this, which was really cool. And I don't know why I didn't necessarily expect that, because it is an adventure game with a world setting and characters and stuff. But once I was getting into it,
me, Drew. Come on, I'm not going to let you get away with without all that dialogue.
So like just with some of the overworld lore about things, like I did read the book, but I got to be honest, some of it's gone over my head. I'm really forgetful.
It's a long book. We made sure there was a trophy for finishing it.
I did notice that popped up. And that was
like, how do we make sure people read this? Let's make a trophy.
And that's gonna make people actually go to it. Like, they'll be in there. They see a trophy list, but oh yeah, I got to go and do that. All right.
last trophy, smallest completion percentage trophy is reading the book.
It'll be interesting to see on other platforms if that is the last trophy people get, or if it is in line with the story. People actually go and click on it, because your mother actually does say, go and brush up. So I did. I listened to Mum. I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy.
That's good. Yeah, I think the rarest trophy will probably be getting all the collectibles, because there's some of them are a little bit harder to find, as you know, and
yes,
as I know.
You did point one out to me, which I had to ask you.
Yep, I did draw a map for you. And there's a couple of random ones where, like, unless you maybe read like the trophy guide, you probably won't necessarily get them. Like, for example, you shoot a bullet into the portal, you get a trophy that's like a portal reference. And if you shoot your gun in your house, there's a trophy called Firearm Safety 101, which I thought that was pretty cool. And that's almost a throwback to the first game from Rainbow Reverie, where if you... What are those shoes with wheels called?
Oh,
Like kids
were they
run around
wheelies?
on?
Are they called wheelies or shoeies?
Yeah,
I
like
don't know. I didn't have them.
if you like skate, basically if you skate in your house, there's a trophy for like, hey, not in the house.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wanted to make a bit of a subtle reference.
There was one kid at school who had
that.
them. I'm like, oh my god, I want them so much. Never got them because they're dumb, but they're cool when you're a kid. Imagine having them now.
I think I was a bit old, but yeah, you should get them now. You get around town a lot quicker, Drew.
Skating around the farm on the grass. And these DC wheelies, whatever.
You get bogged.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Yeah, the lore. Did you have a theory about the portal and where the guns were coming from?
Not particularly. I was thinking like, are they coming from the other side, the goblin side? Do they have any talk in this? Obviously, they did not at all. They resented them very much, hence why the thing went up in the first place. Yeah, I was thinking maybe there's a. Yeah, I don't think I did. Because now with hindsight, I'm like, oh, it's from the quote unquote real world. That's where they were coming from. But I don't think before then I was thinking too much about it. I was just like, oh, we got guns. There's the guys come from here. Who is he? I was thinking more who the man in black was rather than where the gun's coming from. But
so what was your theory with the man in black? As time went on, I guess.
Yeah, I was definitely shocked when I worked out. Well, I didn't work out when it was revealed who he was. I was like, holy shit, Jono. Rainbow, bloody boys, what are you? This is cheeky. No, I don't know. I think now, just with hindsight, I'm just looking back saying, yeah, it could have been this guy, it could have been just like this other evil dictator or something. But no, I don't think I had just this certain thing in mind. But like, it's definitely you. I probably thought it was going to be like a more generic white guy, if you know what I mean, because you can see the bottom of his face. You could tell that he was a human, and he probably was responsible for the weaponry in the game. But I definitely wasn't expecting one of the most evil men in the real world.
Joseph Stalin. Yeah.
Joseph Stalin turns out to be the big bad guy of the game. So
what was your reaction to that section? We should probably talk about that now.
Yeah, so I just went, holy shit. Like, that was my reaction. Just
That's my favorite thing is like I just can't wait to see people's reactions to that. Like I want to know the theories about the goblins and the guns and the portal and the man in black, but I really hope there's a good number of like let's plays and stuff out there where I can see people's reactions to that moment, because when Rainbite got me on a Discord call much like this one and pitched the basic plot of the game, that was part of the game already. I did not come up with that. I can't claim that.
Oh, they're just like, honestly, we need Joseph Stalin in our game, Jono. Don't you dare try and rewrite this one.
pretty much like it was like, there's a portal and guns come through and you're a witch and it's revealed that the guns are coming from the real world. So you get to the real world and the man in black is Joseph Stalin. And I was like, oh, what? Okay. We're really gonna go there, are we? And I didn't try and get it changed, but I did question it, like the appropriate amount of questioning I think that's needed for something like that. Where it's like, do we go with like generic dictator? Do we actually want to use like his name? Do we go with Hitler? Has Hitler been overdone or whatever? Probably, Wolfenstein and all that.
Yeah.
I think I have to give the credit to Dan the Man who did the artwork in Trigger Witch. I think it was his idea to make that the big bad, and he just read a book or watched a movie about Joseph Stalin or something and thought it would be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happened, and then they wanted to make a mech, make it go like full like anime at the end, basically with the mech suit and everything. So it was up to me to kind of come up with this idea of like, why is the man in black going into this world? What's he trying to do? How did he do it? Why are they going into space? Like, why? So it was up to me to be like, okay, he's going into this world because he's trying to find new technology and power, which is in line, I think, with history. Like we know, like Hitler was obsessed with the occult and finding, if you watch Indiana Jones, there's some fact to that search for these holy sacraments and like the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant and whatever. Stalin was similarly power hungry, so that kind of checks out. And then I did this a fair bit of research into Stalin, and some of the lines that he says in this game are like direct quotes that he said in real life, talking about, if you want to chop wood, then chips will fly, and the best way to deal with a problem is to kill them. And there's also some like Rocky 4 references in there, that just kind of like seems like something a Russian villain should say, which is good fun. And so then it was like, okay, so he's going there to get their magic, and then the irony is that they aren't using magic; they're using guns, which are coming from him. And I liked that kind of irony and the fact that the witches were trying to get more of the guns, and the Stalin's people were trying to get the magic. And I looked up some of the crazy research that they were doing, and Stalin was trying to like invent time travel and stuff in the 50s. And there's a note that you find in the Russian base that explains like, we tried to go through the portal and all the soldiers disintegrated and all their weapons went through without them. So that was kind of trying to explain why the guns are going through the portal.
Oh my God.
And then when and that's like, he's saying like, these experiments aren't working, except I think we found a way to make it work, and Stalin's going to be the one that kind of tries to be the pioneer and go through first. So that's why he's there. He's covering his face because he doesn't know what to expect. And then you get to the other side of the portal, and it's an armory, and there's all these guns lying around that are getting like sucked into the portal and spitting them out on the other side. So that was the way that I took this idea that Rainbite had and applied like narrative logic to it, and it was really satisfying to be able to make it make sense in that sense. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. It's so fun, to have them blast off into space. And we know that like, the space race was this big thing with the Russians and the Americans, and the timeline's a bit not quite there because it obviously wasn't until like a couple decades later that I think Sputnik went up like after Stalin. But it was this idea that he used the goblins' magic of levitation, as we know from like the floating islands, and he applied that to like the spaceship so that the spaceship could fly using magic. And in my head, it makes sense. So hopefully it makes sense to everyone else.
Yeah, it makes as much sense as like a floating island can. So
yeah,
we're in a fantasy game. It's all good.
Exactly.
I didn't come into this being like, I don't know, boys. This hand cannon actually takes quite a long time to reload. So I don't know about this the timing on this quite much, and it's got way too much ammo. Like, how can the magazine have that much capacity? Don't know. No, I don't think anyone's thinking that much. Yeah. No, like the final boss battle was just crazy, going in the space, all that. I love the end too, where it's just like Colette's just bang. It's gone. Just boom. Just it's sort of, it's not anticlimactic, but it's just like bang, it's over. Like, like in real life, if you shoot someone, it's done.
Yeah.
Especially since the rest of the game is just like you're shooting him, like bah, bah, bah. It's just going on in a different phase. You move to the moon, finish that one shot, poof. He's just on the ground, blood all over the moon's surface. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Jeez, there it is.
That was fun. Because there was originally like, we were talking about rewrites before, and I think there was like an ending where you like convince Stalin that he was wrong and that he was going to like take you back to Earth. And then there was like an ending that got scrapped, and there was an idea where he creates the portal, because the problem was, how do you get back to Earth, right? Because you're no longer with the rocket and the broom or whatever, so it's a long way to go. If he creates a portal and then he tries to go through it and leave you on the moon, then you can kill him and go through. So that was the solution. But originally, like the sequence with Hilda
Mm.
was pretty straightforward in that last fight. But I was like, again, being a big like Indiana Jones fan, I really love The Last Crusade. I don't know if you're super familiar with it, but the Nazis like shoot his dad, and then it's like the only way for him to save his dad is to do what they say and get the Holy Grail, which is the only thing that can heal his wounds. So in my head, it was like, okay, Stalin's going to shoot your mum. That's going to give you the motivation to just like go nuts and focus on him rather than I'm just going to take my mum and get out of here. And then going back to the real world, you have to obviously convince the mum that guns are bad, or that the quest to only focus on firearms and not on magic and the true identity of the witches is the problem that they've had, and that thirst for power. And the Rainbow guys had this idea that maybe when you go through the portal, there's like been a Narnia style time jump, and that was something that wasn't like locked in. So we had a few different ideas, and one of them was like, like I said, what if you go back through the portal and there's like cowboys and stuff everywhere, and it's like the Wild West.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or it's like cyberpunk or something, and it was like, that would be difficult, and then the game would just be over because you obviously can't like run around in this world. But we thought it would be cool to have like an end game, and that's where I had the idea that maybe you go and it's been like 40 or 50 years, and the world has all changed and adjusted because of these actions that you had back then. You've reunited the goblins and the witches, and you've brought magic back into the world, and the positions of power, like the Oracle being like representing magic, has been replaced by your friend Remy, and your mother, who is like the head of the witches, has been replaced by Shelley. And I thought that was a cool way to bring it full circle, and then you can like go around and talk to all the characters and see what's changed since you were last there, like so many years ago.
Yeah, I thought that was cool because a lot of Zelda games, and even Zelda clones or Zelda inspired games, they usually save at the end boss, and then it doesn't save afterwards. And that's always been something that's irked me so much, because like you finish the game, get congratulations, then it doesn't save. I'm like, it's so annoying. So in this game where it's like you beat the game and then it saves, and then you've got people to go and talk to learn some more context about the world in the future and how things have changed. I thought that was excellent. I really do appreciate that extra mile, and that really does add a lot to just the world in general. I thought just seeing the characters, especially Shelley, just seeing how much she's aged and how much she's become from that janitor now to the Oracle of the land. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah. The new Grand Receiver, as we put it. Yeah, it was cool to. It was like the prophecy had been fulfilled, and like because she's half goblin, she was the only one that could like really bring peace between those two different areas. So it was, I like how it all just fit into place. It was, I was going to say it wrote itself, but it didn't. I wrote it, but it was, it was, it's really satisfying for it to feel like all the loose ends are tied off. Like that's something really important to me in a story, is that like you don't have to wonder, I wonder what happened to that person, or I wonder what would have gone down if they didn't go through the portal, or whatever it might be. So as much as we could, we tried to make the game feel a bit different in the end game. So I don't know if you noticed, but there's like the goblins live in tents and the witches live in houses. So when at the end of the game, there's houses and tents in the different towns, and goblins and witches in both towns. And the NPCs talk about how they, move between the towns, and they've got friends that are witches or friends that are goblins and stuff like that. So it was all those kind of little details trying to make it feel like something has actually changed.
Yeah, no, I think they've done a great job with that. It just feels rewarding, and like with a lot of games now, or it's usually setting up a sequel or something. So it's, what's happening here? It's like, oh well, We won't know until next time. And sometimes that next time never happens because games take so long to make, and even some don't even make it through the green light. So it's good just to be like, what happened to this character? Oh, she become very successful, and she lived a good life. Thank God for that.
Yeah. Or if you're a shopkeeper, you take over after your like we because the sprites, obviously it's a lot of work to change the sprites. So I was just like, let's just make it like their daughter is now the shopkeeper. So they'll have a different name, but they'll look exactly the same.
Yeah. And it's always interesting looking at trying to look at it through like a game development lens as well. When like in instances like that, where it's like, oh well, we've if you did like a cyberpunk sort of world afterwards, like that would have been awesome. Like come out the portal and it's all cowboys, or it's all just like a completely different theme. That would be awesome. Like, oh my God, then you got like a new world to explore, but that's basically throwing away everything else that took like the years to create, let alone the years it would take to create a brand new game. Like 2 games in one.
It would have just been a cutscene, and then that was the end.
Yeah.
Like it would kick you back, like those other Zelda games would kick you back to before going into the dungeon. Which wouldn't have been as cool, I think. And I did have like some ambitious ideas, like, oh, what if like in Red Dead Redemption 2, I really loved how there's this house that these 2 brothers are building in one of the first towns, and as you go through the game, the house gets built, and by the end of the game, it's just they finish the house. So I thought it would be cool if there was something being built at the start of the game, and then at the end of the game, it's finished. Or there's like a broken window, and then at the end of the game, the window's been fixed, like something like that. So I was trying to come up with all these like ideas of what we could show. But when it's an indie team and it's like one guy doing all the artwork, it's a lot to come up with these things that people might not even notice in the game.
It's like, Dan, can you build me a window? So, oh, Jono, you busted my balls here, mate. Tell you what, that's going to take me half a day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's talk about Hob. So he's one of the goblin characters you meet along on your journey. He comes across very nice, but he ends up betraying you. And I'll tell you what, I'm like, this guy's way too nice.
Because, deep.
Yeah. So how did you sort of come up with this character with the writing and that? Did you initially want a character in there to be like, haha, I gotcha, or was it a trait of the goblins you wanted to maybe showcase with this character?
There's a few different things with this character. So there's a sequence where you get the sacred symbols, the staff at the end of the dungeon, and he throws water on you and thinks that you're going to melt.
That's good. Yes, that's good.
Witches melt, which is a nice Wizard of Oz reference. But I had that was one of the very first ideas that I had when they asked me to write the game and they told me what the game was. Well, I knew what the game was about from watching like the kind of funny indie showcase. So I was like, okay, it's witches. What are some funny witches jokes? What if there's someone that thinks water melts a witch? So originally there was going to be like a boss who was a giant, and I thought it would be cool if the giant's really dumb and talks like one of those trolls in The Witcher, where he's just like a caveman basically. And as you step into his lair to fight him, there's like a bucket of water on top of a door that like falls on you, and that's like his trap to capture you, and then the water doesn't melt you, and then you fight. So that was my original idea. And then like, oh, we're not doing the giant anymore, we're doing a dragon. And then the dragon became like this cyborg dragon, which is another story altogether. But I was like, okay, well, the dragon can't throw water on you because dragons can't talk. So I have to reapply that somewhere else in the game. And I had the idea to have a dungeon where there's no boss fight, which I'm really glad that they included that in the game, because it really mixes things up, I think, in that dungeon, where you get used to the formula, like, oh, if I go through this dungeon, then I get to the end, then I fight a boss, and that's the end. So in this one, you get to the end and it starts to fall apart. And the inspiration for that was, again, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very beginning of the movie, Indy's being like led through this cave, this tomb by the local tour guide who turns on him and steals the idol, and then like the boulder comes down and you have to escape. And so there's a little bit of that in there with a little bit of Aladdin, the Cave of Wonders. And as soon as you disturb any of the riches, then the whole place falls to pieces. So I wanted to have a bit of that element to it and make it about the escape rather than the fight. So originally, I think the broom section where you're flying on the broom, that was going to be like the escape on the broom, and that ended up being earlier in the dungeon. So it was more just about getting out without dying in the end. But yeah, that's what inspired that, and I wanted to have a goblin character that you could get to know a bit more than the ones that kind of just come and go, or that you read about with the prince in the castle. So Hob was really fun to write because he was pretty inept and incompetent, but trying to be like, you had the vibe that he was trying to be helpful, but is he actually kind of a bit of a Shylock? Is he a grifter? And that goal was that people wouldn't really know until he turns on you, because he does get you to where you want to go. But what was your read on him? Like, did you feel like something was a bit fishy, or that did you think he was a bit of a clown until he turned on you?
Yeah, I thought there was something going on there. I don't know if that's because of my suspicions for the goblins, even though most of them were nice, but it's just like, he seems so willing to help you. I'm like, everyone else does not want to help me at all, but this guy does.
Did you pay him, or did you go and take care of the imps or whatever?
I think I did pay him. I think I did. What?
You coughed up.
Yeah. Does that just mean I lose 500 bits? Or yeah, I assumed it did. But he was quite nice. I can get swindled pretty easy, Jono. Apparently.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a good deal. It's a fair deal.
I'm like, yeah.
Save you a few minutes. You can make up 500 gems in the arena pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I had plenty of them. I'm like, yeah, just take them, mate. It'd be fine. But didn't end up paying off for me. So, but like in this sequence as well with Hob, this is where you put in a few sacred symbols references. So anyone doesn't know sacred symbols, it's a popular PlayStation podcast hosted by Colin Moriarty. And I'm a listener of that show as well. And Colin usually introduces with greetings and salutations. That's what Hob introduces with as well. And also the sacred symbols reference in the game too, with the actual items being called the sacred symbols. Was it just the two names you decided, or two references you decided to put in there in this sequence, or was there a little bit more to that, or was it just, oh well, this character can have this and that from?
Yeah, I just wanted to show some love because Colin was a big fan of Reverie and has been a good friend to me as well over the years, and it's worked out pretty well. Like, he's been a really big supporter of this game too, even prior to knowing that there's references to his podcast in there. So it was cool to be able to do that. And there's references to so many things in the trophies and in the game that it wasn't a big deal to throw in one extra one. And beyond being like beyond being that, it's also a reference to like the actual sacred symbols, like the PlayStation like triangle, circle, square, X, which is my like love for PlayStation coming through. And I think like when the trophy pops, I wanted the artwork to be the actual like triangle, circle, square, X, but they didn't go for that idea. Because I guess it would have been a weird thing to have on like Xbox achievements and stuff. But
or PlayStation might not even like it. They'll be like, oh, they're our symbols, mate. They're our sacred symbols.
But they don't own the shapes.
Yeah, surely not. It's just something I noticed because, like, with all the other references being like, whether it's Indiana Jones or the Wizard of Oz or, the big well-known movies, it just stood out to me.
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Yeah, it just stood out to me because it's like a, smaller content creator instead of like a very well-known movie.
And their first game had kind of funny references in it. Like, there's a poster in the arcade of the
that's right.
funny smiley face. So I guess again a throwback to that lineage of Collins in Kind of Funny, and um, I'm sure there's some kind of funny reference in there. Maybe I can't remember. There's so many things in there that I've probably lost track.
Yeah.
There might even be a House of Mario reference in there. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, who knows? I'll keep playing. I'll keep looking for it. Jono's like, where is it?
The word drew might be, or draw might be in there somewhere.
I think I do remember the word drew in there. I'm like, I remember thinking I should screenshot it. I'm like, no, it's obviously just, the word drew. But
No, it's a reference to House of Mario.
yeah, of course. I'll take that. Yeah.
No, it was really fun to like get in, like, if it wasn't like a direct reference, like an allusion to, like there's the memes from Lord of the Rings, like one does not simply walk into Mordor, like there's a reference to that, and the old like keep your secrets, like that kind of quote. Like there's I had fun kind of working them in there so that they weren't like super obvious, but people who are fans of them will notice them, as well as like think there's like a line from Harry Potter. Not I haven't seen the Harry Potter movies, but Jared told me that it would work well somewhere, so that's in there too. And just like paying tribute, I guess, to the genre, the fantasy genre, and the things that inspire us. And even like the start of the game, you wake up in bed. Like that wasn't my idea. And I don't know if it's like meant to be a reference to Chrono Trigger or to some of the Zelda games. You wake up in a bed. Am I right?
It's definitely a Zelda
to
one.
the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's in some ways it's just a trope of video games in general, but it could also, for all I know, be a reference to some of those things. Yeah. There's some good Metal Gear Solid ones in there too, if people notice.
Yeah, there'll be like there's
so many.
Probably most of them would have gone over my head. There, so there's like a few where I was like, oh yeah, but a lot of them are just like, even when you were talking about Hob before throwing the water on him, I laughed at it because it's just funny. I didn't really get the reference from the Wizard of Oz necessarily. I just thought like, you're gonna melt. It's like, no, oh. Yeah,
and he says, "I read it in a book," and it's like that's the reference
there. Yeah. No, because now I'm thinking about it. Like with you're talking about Indiana Jones and the Wizard of Oz. I feel like they're such well-known movies. I assumed I watched them, but I don't know if I did. I watched Indiana Jones, was it Crystal Skull when it came to theaters. Yeah, because I went with a bunch of friends and I watched that. I'm like, yeah, it was all right, but maybe I didn't watch the other ones. Shit.
Well, you should, and when you do, you'll be like, "This is just like Trigger Witch."
Well, that's a Trigger Witch reference. Wow.
In 1983. At the time.
Jeez, they must have had a portal or something like the Man in Black.
Oh. There you go. It's come full circle.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we wrap things up, Jono?
No, I think we've covered the big things, just had a blast writing this game, and I hope people enjoy it and enjoy the little sub stories, the B plots and the C plots, and it's probably a good time to say, like, I assumed people would think that we were making a statement about guns in this game, and I don't know if that ever crossed your mind. No. But I did think like it would be kind of hypocritical to have a whole game full of guns and then at the end to be like, see, guns are bad. So instead of that, especially because you still have your guns in the end game, it was more like, okay, the guns represent technology and progress and the search for, becoming more powerful and that thirst for that greed, I guess, that's associated with progress. So that's how I interpreted it as the writer, and not everyone will get that. And it was almost like, I guess, like the way that we look at whether it's social media, the internet, like Boston Dynamics robots that are going to take over the world one day. And sometimes you think like, why are we why are we doing all this stuff? Why have we got to this point where the base of human existence for thousands of years has been nothing to do with all these things that we're obsessed with now? Are we losing like what we really are, like our humanity or whatever? And I'm not expecting everyone to play the game and be like, I see exactly what Jono's trying to say here. But that's like where I was, what I was thinking of, and trying to kind of put that across as, that conversation between Hilda and Colette, where they're like, it's about balance and remembering who we really are. So that's what I was thinking of anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you were successful in getting that across. Just like with the whole idea of, the guns being like a real powerful sort of weapon, but taking away from their culture, who they were, their history, and it sort of just like erased everything. It made their relationship with the other, I guess, race or species in the world with the goblins, made that very negative to the point where it was no longer existent with the barrier up there. It just sort of...
And it goes, and there's a part of the game that I'm really proud of, which is the sequence where you meet the Oracle for the first time. Originally, those first 3 dungeons you could do in any order, but it really made sense for the story rhythm and pacing for that to be the third one. So we shut it off until you'd done the first 2, and she tells you about how, being like an oracle of the old ways, she's like anti-firearms, and she can see the effect that it's having on the world. And it's that like the world that's out of balance, and the magic that was no longer being used is no longer keeping things in check, and that's why all these creatures are attacking you as soon as you like step out of the village, because things are just not the way that they used to be. So, and that's where that view, you look out across the land and you can see everything and it's peaceful. And I really pushed Rainbite to include that kind of horizon shot, because it's not the type of shot, like you never really see a horizon in a game with this view, because it's just the nature of a top down thing. You're looking at the ground, and I thought it would be really cool to have this beautiful shot where you can just take a moment and go, what are we doing here? Like, what is this all about? And also to be where the game ends and have a nice little credit sequence. So that was the idea with that, and I think that it's just a cool little place to hang out. That's my favorite spot in the game.
Yeah, I definitely took a few screenshots there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, and also you can pet the dog.
Yes, you can. There was a competition, I don't know if you saw on Twitter a few months ago. It was like, get your pet in the game. So there's a few pets around the place. There's like a cat on one of the rooftops. There's the black dog you can pat. And I think there's a bunny rabbit somewhere too. So...
No, I didn't see the competition. I would have entered it. Would have got Lila in there, my little Jack Russell.
It was on Twitter. There was a lot of entries. But I guess you missed out. You'll have to...
Did the winners, they just have the cutest pets, or what was the criteria?
I don't know. I didn't pick them. Maybe Rainbite already developed or already drew the animals, so they just picked the ones that looked like them.
Yeah, that's a smart idea.
That was another thing where I was like, we have to have a dog. You have to be able to pet it so that we can tweet at that Twitter account and get some free publicity.
Yeah. Has it happened yet? Has there been a GIF made up?
Yeah, because I wanted to. I've got the video ready to send out. By the time this is published, it probably will have gone out there. And then you've got the bat in the casino as well. I don't think anyone submitted a bat as a pet, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up, because I did that at the end of the game and I got all the rewards from there. And I think I'm like, wait, you get a companion? God damn it! I wanted that.
Familiar.
Yeah, was that available through like the whole game, or was it just afterwards? Because I didn't.
Yeah, it's there from the start.
Oh, I wish I got it from the start. I want a bat following me. That was cool. I love animal companions in games. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's meant to be. There's probably heaps of games that do it, but it reminded me of like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where you can have any number of different familiars following you around with different abilities.
Yeah. kind of want a dog though. You know, I want a dog follow me.
You have to play Fallout.
Yeah, or Fable, or what's another dog game? You get a dog as a companion. I guess the Legend of Zelda. I guess in Breath of the Wild, you can have a wolf. If you have the wolf amiibo, you can tap that and it follows you. Yeah.
I never got that.
No.
I only have one amiibo, and it's this one.
Yarn Yoshi. Very cool.
It is.
What made you get that one?
When?
Oh, what made you get that one? If you one amiibo.
Yoshi's my main in Smash Bros. Ever since the 64.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw this was coming out, I thought it's too cute not to get it. So I got that before I even had a Switch or any Nintendo console.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I love that amiibo.
I can see a Yoshi on your shelf too. So respect.
Yeah, I've got one of those go-karts where Yoshi can drive around. I've never used it though. My mum got it for me for Christmas, and she just I'll never put the batteries in. She's like, "Why do you use it, Drew? It's just a waste." I'm like, "It's just a display piece. It's all good, Mum." It's like, oh, she was offended. I never actually played with it. I'm like, "Oh, it's just a nice little ornament."
Just send her a video of the podcast and be like, "See, it's getting some good use."
Yeah, now she's getting some good use there, mate. She's a nice prop. While I'm talking,
out of focus.
Out of focus prop. It's funny too because actually I'm looking at OBS right now. It's not even in the shot because I'm a square.
So people watching this don't even know what we're talking about.
No, on a normal show it will be in the background, but
okay,
yeah, not when I'm closer to the computer. But Jono, thank you very much for coming back to the House of Mario to talk all spoilers about Trigger Witch. Fantastic game. Awesome story. It was really awesome getting some more context straight from the writer as well. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for listening to all my in-depth diatribes about, pontificating and talking up my own genius.
When I was thinking about this game, right, I was just had the best idea, greatest idea actually. It was unrivaled by any other writer in the industry. No,
yeah, basically.
No, he didn't come up.
It
that.
It is kind of funny, playing the game and laughing at things and being like, ha, 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 ha.
Good one, Jono.
Yeah. I say that, but really what it is the combination of writing it, knowing that it's coming, and then seeing it translate. Having not seen a character on screen saying it just seeing it work is so such a relief that you're like, yes, it's still funny. It's not just in my head.
Yeah, I might do a similar thing with the podcast. We do skits before a normal episode, and the next day I'll listen to it in the car just to make sure. Just listening for a different speaker to make sure it sounds all right. Yeah. And oh, very funny. If I can make myself laugh, at least that's one person out of our audience, and it's just me laugh at myself.
That's all you have to do. All you have to go on as a writer or as any kind of creative person is is this something that I would like? And if I like it, then I have to just assume or hope that someone else will like it. Because if you don't like it, then no one's going to like it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah. I usually play the skits to Bryce, and if I see him smirk a bit, I'm like, yeah.
That's worth something.
It's worth something. If I make him cry and he goes out the room, oh, whoops.
Re-record.
So everyone who has listened to this has played Trigger Witch. Guys, thank you very much for supporting Rainbite and Jono's work.
Thank you.
I think it's said it a fair few times over the last couple of episodes, but really did enjoy this game, Jono. Did an excellent job. I'm looking forward to other projects you work on.
Thanks.
I'll be here to support your work. And where can they find you if they want to keep up to date on Twitter and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at Jono himself. You can hear me on my podcast, Putting in Work, or if you're into movies, Comedy Rewind, or if you're into basketball, Hoop Dreams. They're all on the 8-Bit network. And my plan at some point is to do a Putting in Work with everyone in Rainbite. I want to do an AMA where people can send in questions about anything to do with the game, and there will be someone on that podcast that can answer the question, because the three of us pretty much did everything apart from the music and some of the portraits in the game.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be awesome. So, is there you got a rough idea of when that will go out?
It depends on availability of those 3 dudes, but hopefully, around the same time as this, it might be out already. It's we want to give people some time to play the game to get the questions. It might be a week or so, but we're also looking at like doing a stream where maybe we all get on the same stream and play through the game and talk about it as well. That will be less of the Q&A and just us chatting. So that's, it's hard to say, possibly already happened, might be happening soon, might be happening right now. But yeah, there'll be plenty of interviews that I'm doing beyond this one on different podcasts. So thanks for people that have been interested. Thanks to people that have bought the game. It makes a huge difference. There's been so much love out there, like been blown away by the demo feedback and the trailer feedback, and people like you who I know have already played it. It's been awesome just to, and a relief to hear people say, oh, it's good. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's actually quite fun. And, I'm so lucky that this is the first game I get to work on with these guys. Like, the first game I work on could have been anything. It could have been some mobile, like Tetris ripoff with a story, or it could have been a game that's that I don't have any interest in, like what do they call, like the visual novel?
Yeah.
No, what are they? Yeah,
It could have
been anything.
Could have been writing that weeb content.
Yeah, but it's this awesome twin stick shooter, and I just feel so lucky that I know these guys and that they needed someone with my background. So yep, thank you. I'm stoked every time anyone mentions the game, and I read everything, like I said on the last podcast. So if you say something nasty, I'll be very hurt.
Yep. And yeah, awesome stuff. If you guys want links to any of that stuff, I'll make sure I'll get them from Jono when I'm posting this episode. You can go and check out the streams, the episode of Putting in Work, and all that. There's a massive backlog of Putting in Work as well. If you haven't listened to anything, there's plenty of content there. Yeah, you can listen to me ramble and stutter as I was very nervous.
You've come so far.
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much. All right, guys. The doors to the House of Mario are closed. Oh, that's the wrong button. Catch you later. Just as you say, I've come so far. Hit the wrong button.
That's gold.